He's joining in 5 minutes.
But we can start on time because it's now streaming live.
Definitely we'll start on time.
Perfect. Dr. Rubel, you are muted.
Now the life in a campus is like keep publishing. The university and the system ask you for the publication only, nothing else.
That's how it's been in the US now also. I mean, I'm going up for tenure next year rather. And you have to publish, like we have a list of journals and we have to publish in those.
Hello, Medji, how are you?
हाँ जी, I'm good. हो गया connection आ गया? आवाज आ रही है clear?
We can hear you.
Hi, Amit.
Hi. I can't
How are
see
you?
others. It's only Rubel on the screen. He's
Okay, this is
occupied
Jatin Gandhi then in that case.
Yeah, I recognize the voice, but I can't see you.
Okay. Nothing much to see here, so.
Jatin, do you have a virtual background or is that your office?
No, that's my book rack, but it's a virtual background. So I just took a picture and made it my background.
Yeah. It looks good.
Oh, in fact, this is the Punjab section, so.
Sat Shri Akal, sir. Navdeep also.
Sat Shri Akal, Sat Shri Akal. Hello, good evening.
Sat Shri Akal, sir.
Sat Shri Akal.
Sat Shri Akal, sir. Good evening.
Sat Shri Akal. Good evening, everyone.
So we'll begin in another 1 or 2 minutes, madam.
Yes, Rubel, I think the video will come in first, and I think that should start. Should we ask the tech team to start it?
Yes. Let them play this AV first.
Yes, I think it's 7:31. AV agar hum play kar le, to we'll be on time.
Okay.
Can I know who's on the tech team? If somebody were to respond, Team Zoom.
It's Manushri must be there.
Yeah. Manushri, I think we can start with the video, please.
AV, yes.
The introductory AV.
Madam Manushri has sent a message that the AVs they'll play later on. So we can begin. We can begin.
Okay. All right.
एक पैड दे दे मेरे को काम कर लिखने के लिए.
So then let's. We are live right now, so I will begin then. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So namaskar and a very good evening on behalf of the Global Media Education Council. And I extend a warm welcome to all the attendees, especially those who have joined us for the very first time. To give you a background, Global Media Education Council is an organization which came into being in 2021 And it has media educators from different institutions in an endeavor to create discussion and consolidate views on media and media training. I've been one of the lucky members in witnessing its growth from the start. And now GMEC, one sees, has vice presidents from more than 10 countries, and the number keeps growing by the day. The working committee members are from across India and South Asia. GMEC is an organization which is spearheaded by Professor KG Suresh as president of the council and Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary as secretary. And there are many illustrious academicians as members in this organization. The council has and is organizing this unique online conclave, which we have titled as Global Communication Education Council. We usually refer to it as GCEC. And this will has continued from October, it will continue till April 2022. A unique 75-day event. It involves Indian and global academics and professionals. And the idea is to celebrate the diversity with scholarly contributions from varied perspectives. This is day 55 of this colossal effort. So you can imagine the efforts that have gone in GCEC for the past few months and the great effort of the back-end team as well. So 75 days, 90 minutes each, 75 Indian stalwarts, 75 foreign stalwarts, 75 government officials. There's representation also from the space of policy and government. And the event also incorporates research by young research scholars, early career researchers, all on this one platform. So in effect, GCEC is the world's longest running media education event. And I again warmly welcome you on behalf of the entire team at GMEC. The topic for today's session is Media and Society, and I would really like to introduce the moderator of the day, Dr. Rubal Kanozia, a former journalist. Dr. Rubal is a media educator and researcher who presently works as assistant professor at the Department of Mass Communication and Media Studies, Central University of Punjab, Bhatinda. He has done his PhD in Environmental Communication, Challenges and Prospects in Punjab. He has also been associated with Dainik Jagran newspaper, All India Radio, Doordarshan, and IBN 7. Rubal has been awarded the Junior Research Fellowship by UGC. He's also trainer of fact-checking initiative with Google News Initiative and Factshala, Media Literacy Initiative by Data Leads, and First Draft USA. To his credit are many international conferences of reputed bodies across the globe. And he has also, to his credit, 13 published papers in Scopus Index journals. He's guest editor with Frontiers in Sociology, and he has a huge and substantial background in research projects and consultancy. And I hand over to Dr. Rubal and ask him to proceed with the day's event. All over to you, Rubal, and really looking forward to another day of great intervention in this domain. You're on mute, Rubal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gauri, for a brief introduction. In fact, I must express my gratitude to Professor KG Suresh, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, and you and other members of GMEC and the GCEC. All have been working so hard in conducting this 75 days marathon webinar series. And as you mentioned in this series, many stalwarts from the media education and from the government communication system and from the university administrator and 75 foreign speakers have been participating in this. And today is the 55th day of this webinar. So in today's function, in today's event, we'll be talking about media and the society. We kept a very open topic. And but the core idea of taking this topic was that in media, there are several aspects from print to electronic to social media and the films, and how we have been being the media researcher and being the media institutions or being the media practitioners, how we have been contributing towards society. Majorly, I wish the speaker, if they can speak about the role of media, as we have seen in the past, particularly during the freedom struggle of the India, what was the role of media, then how this role changes after 1947, how this role changes after 1991, and how this role was changed when the TV came in the country, and the site experiment and the KEDA project. Then after the arrival of the private channels in the 24/7, the role has been changed, and the responsibilities are some people we have noticed that some people criticize media while like they are crossing their limits, crossing beyond the basic principles of journalism, and some people call it this is the new states now the media people, they are aggressive, and the role of social media is being debated in the society. Some people call it the media should play a role of a unifier, but unfortunately we have seen what we are observing is that sometimes media is creating noise and sometimes creating hates in the society. So these are the debatable issues, and for this purpose we invited range of brilliant speaker in this session. In this session, we'll be able to listen Dr. Neelam Sharma. She is assistant professor and director of graduate studies in communication department at Idaho State University, USA. In the second speaker will be Professor Raghvendra P. Tiwari. He is a vice chancellor of Central University of Punjab, and he has been writing with the several newspapers. Like he has been writing with the Hindu, Times of India, Telegram, Dainik Jagran. And then we have our own Professor Navjeet Singh John. Like he has been teaching in the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication in Punjab University, Patiala. He was the recipient of Fulbright Fellowship in 1993, if I'm not wrong. And then he completed his master's in communication technology from one university in United States. And then we have Mr. Amit Sharma. He is a resident editor of Dainik Jagran in Punjab and Chandigarh. He has been working with many newspapers like Indian Express, Hindustan Times, and he was the part of core launching team of Daily Post. And then we have we have a gracious presence of Mr. Jatin Gandhi. He is one of the wonderful media scholar I ever met rather media practitioner come turned a media educator. He has been awarded with the Chevening Fellowship and another 2-3 fellowship he has received, and he has been working as a fact checker also, and he's doing freelancing with the many media houses, and he is also a GNA trainer, and he's taking workshops and working in the field of media literacy. So now, without taking much time, I would like to invite Dr. Neelam Sharma to present her talk, because she has been working on digital media, and that her research areas are journalism, media psychology, and international communication. She received her PhD degree in public communication and technology from Colorado State University. And recently she has published with the International Journal of Communication and Psychology of Popular Media Culture, Global Media Communication, Atlantic Journal of Communication. Like she has many good publication into her credit. So now over to you, Dr. Neelam.
Thank you very much. I have some slides, so I'll try if I'm able to share these. Please let me know if you can see these.
It's visible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. This is an honor to be speaking here with such eminent panel, and I don't want to take up a lot of time. Rubel had told me that I have 15 minutes, so I'll try to stick to that time limit. And it's also early morning for me, so it's like the start of the day for me. So when he told me about the topic, media in society, actually, this is also a class that I teach at Idaho State University, so it's right up my alley there. We have a long history here to cover, and we can talk our entire lifetime about how is media affecting society. You know, it's affecting every aspect of our society. But then I tried to stick this talk to some of my latest research around journalism and digital media, especially pertaining to India. So I grew up in India, I studied in India, I worked in India, and then I moved to the US to do my PhD. So I'm not an outsider. I understand how the Indian media works, but I'm not very informed as well because I moved away. So you can correct me if I make a mistake here, but I'm going to base my talk here on the research that I've conducted, and especially around the need for media literacy campaigns, for misinformation that's going on, the hate campaigns that are going on. So I have 4 studies that I will share with you briefly, the key findings, and then I will take any questions that you have or any comments that you have. So Dr. Rubel has introduced me. I'm in my first year of assistant professor. I'm a tenure track assistant professor, and I'll be going up for tenure hopefully later this year. And I also recruit and manage the MA program at the university. So, so we don't have a PhD currently, but we have a master's program, and I handle that program as well as a part of my job profile. The focus of my PhD has been persuasion, narrative persuasion at the individual level. And I graduated from the Colorado State University in the US. I worked for 7 years as a journalist in India, Chandigarh, and that's how I know Jatin Gandhi. He was a big name in Chandigarh, and I was a small time reporter there. I didn't expect him to remember me, so thank you very much. But I was a principal correspondent with the Indian Express. Vipin Pabbi was my boss. And then I also worked at the Times of India and Tribune, both in Chandigarh. And my areas of research have been psychology, journalism, persuasion, theory, and research methods. So I really began to dig my heels into Indian media, the contemporary media. And I'm not going to go into a lot of history of Indian media or history of media in general, but I'm going to focus on the contemporary mediated society that we have in India currently, and what are the challenges and opportunities that the country is facing. I happened to be for 3 months in India in 2019, when I spent 3 months here in summer. And that was also a time when Narendra Modi was elected for the second time. And I was intrigued by how this whole reporting, how the media was handling the situation, and what is this relationship of journalists with the political elite, the political class, and importantly, how are journalists being perceived in India? Because I think that's a big issue there, the credibility of mainstream press, the role of mainstream media. I know Rubel briefly touched on that. Is media a part of the elite political class? Is it being viewed separate? Is it being viewed as corrupt? Or is it also, the biggest challenge here is it being viewed as irrelevant? And that's a big question that we have to ask, especially when we have social media, especially when we have a political class. And that's not peculiar to India, but especially when we have a peculiar class that wants to bypass the mainstream media, that wants to discredit the mainstream media, that doesn't want to engage with the new mainstream media in a neutral way, but wants to engage with the mainstream media that's friendly to it. I don't want to go into any political ideologies here, but I'm going to strictly be within the research that I conducted. So I met with journalists across spectrum, both in legacy and new media, in Delhi and in regional centers, especially journalists who had 10 to 15 years of minimum experience of political journalism in India, and they could compare different elections. This paper will be out soon. It's an interview-based study post 2019 results. So I wanted to wait for the results to come out before I reach out to these journalists. And my questions were really very simple, as any informed citizen would ask. I mean, who controls the agenda? We can go into agenda setting. What's the role of the mainstream press? Are we still the gatekeepers? Are we relevant? Now, what I sense from that finding, and I have a paper there, is that there's a struggle going on between different entities of controlling the agenda. Everybody wants to control the agenda, and this is a struggle that we are witnessing. People want to control the agenda because they have social media as a tool. Political class wants to control the agenda using social media, and journalists want to retain their role as gatekeepers in the society. we witnessed a lot of hate campaign, online attacks, political parties pumping a lot of money, and journalists witnessing these WhatsApp messages, especially in rural Hindi heartland of the country during the election campaign, which went unchecked, but which were circulated with the purpose to not only gain votes, but to divide the society. So we have a big issue going on. And if you talk to journalists who were field reporting during those days, they are full of stories. How fake messages were targeted to different population groups with a clear agenda. And a lot of money went into that thing. So the attempt here has been to kind of make the mainstream media, especially the media that is asking questions, irrelevant, so that the political class's agenda goes unfiltered. And this is happening across political spectrum. So we cannot blame one political party here. Everyone has budgets and teams and people working for these. So journalists kind of concluded in my studies that कि हम उनकी pitch पे नहीं खेल सकते. So the agenda, there is an attempt to use social media to set the headlines, to create issues, to keep journalists being engaged in that social media narrative, and not let journalists think beyond that. So there's this catching game that's going on. And journalists feel that there's a need to break that. We cannot simply keep on reporting about people's tweets. If we keep doing that, then we are not relevant. But if we break that narrative, then we continue to remain relevant. Journalists feel that there are pressures on them to keep following the social media narrative set by people. They feel there are credibility issues, and they feel that misinformation and hate campaigns are on a rise in India, and there is an immediate need to do something about it. We have people in this panel here who are engaged with misinformation, for example, or media literacy campaigns, for example, and I think there is this big need here. In the US, we have kind of recognized this, and there is a sustained research around these things, especially during Trump era and post that. But in India, I think there is a need for more meaningful engagement, especially telling people that whatever they are reading on WhatsApp is not correct. So we have this issue going on. How you're going to tackle it and how the election campaign in 2024 is going to look, I think there is a lot of research opportunity here, but how things are shaping right now don't look very promising. So things to learn here, but then we move on to another aspect of media, and that is how the political class is using it. So when we say media in society, we have journalists who have traditionally been the content creator and distributors. By journalists, I mean press, right? Your legacy press. But then we also have now a political class who wants to do what it wants to do, right? So they don't want to engage with the mainstream media, especially the media that is critical and questions them. So they have a tool in their hands. It isn't an India-specific phenomenon that's going on. We have witnessed it everywhere in Latin America, in Europe, in the US, the rise of populism, the rise of populist leaders who use emotive messages, who don't engage with the mainstream press, and who want to directly connect with people so that they can simply transmit their messages unfiltered to the people. And this is where my second research is. So this paper was presented at ICN. It's currently being reviewed for publication. How did Narendra Modi use Twitter? Twitter I use as an example because Twitter data is easy to retrieve in 2014 and 2019. And this becomes especially interesting when in 2014, he was positioning himself as an outsider. And in 2019, he was running for a re-election, right? He was part of the political system in 2019 compared to 2014. And there are a lot of findings in the study, and there are a lot of data in the study. But I'm going to highlight a few things that immediately concern the mainstream media. The engagement with the mainstream media was minimal in 2014. It was kind of ignored. You don't exist, you know. I know what I'm doing and I'll connect with my people. You are a non-entity. But in 2019, we see that this engagement is 10 times more than what it was in 2014. As journalists and as people who have been associated with journalism in one form or the other, as educators or practitioners, it is our responsibility to understand and probably question what changed in those 5 years. Now, there are different opinions, and I'm not going to offer any opinion here because this is a fact that this engagement increased. But some of the opinions are, has the press become more establishment friendly than what it was in 14? Now, if I am running for election, I'm not going to engage with a news article that's critical. I'm not going to share that news article. I'm going to share an article that is promoting my cause. So if I'm sharing more of mainstream media's articles in 1919 compared to 14, it means that I have more favorable articles to share. My interviews in the mainstream media. How did that thing change? Why did that thing change? I think there are some serious ramifications here for the Indian media, some checking in the mirror. There are two things that could be going on, and I'm not going to comment on that. One thing, it could be that some voices are being suppressed. And the other thing could be that some people have completely turned around and changed their perspective on things. So there are two possibilities here, but then of course things have changed. We also find that the political class, and this is a case study about Modi, but we can do that case study with pretty much any political leader here, is that this emotional connection with the voter, that I want to connect directly with you. And I'm going to use the media that I have under my control to do that. Again, the big question mark here is the mainstream press still relevant? Or do people really want the mainstream press to be still relevant, and how to break that cycle? These two studies are kind of interlinked in the sense that one is coming from the perspective of journalists and their views, and the other is how the political class is using the contemporary media that they have, both mainstream and social media. So you see this engagement that is two-way, increase of mainstream media as a tool on social media platforms. So that I thought was very interesting and probably should provide some feedback, some insights into understanding what is going on in contemporary media. But then there aren't just journalists and there aren't just political leaders. There's this huge crores of people in India, our general public, that is also using social media because we are in user-generated content era. It's never been this good for people. And we must also focus on what they are doing, how they are doing, and does it make sense, right? So my just published paper that Rubal was just talking about, it just came out this month, in fact, is my examination of tweets of how people reacted, how middle class reacted to when your domestic migrant laborers were on roads during the lockdown in 2020. This generated a lot of publicity at a global scale for the Modi government. And we have to, so I decided to look at it as to what people are doing on social media. And people in India are actually using social media platforms to express outrage, anger against establishment, against the system. So people are doing their own thing, right? So journalists are doing their own thing, political people are doing their own thing, but general people are also doing their own thing. And they are using these platforms for reacting to situations that was probably blocked during the legacy media era when there was no feedback loop, when general people were mainly consumers, but not generator of content. Now we see this very active, very interesting mediated society that's so robust that everybody wants a share in the pie. So everybody wants to say something. So people are expressing their outrage. So outrage was directed against the central government, who was deemed responsible for the crises, but not just that, previous governments, state governments. So people were angry and they were expressing their outrage on this social media platform. And what was interesting around this time was that it was the social media that kind of discussed this. situation, this crisis of migrant laborers more than the mainstream media did. So we see this reaction from people and Twitter, which was inundated with videos and pictures of people suffering on road, and then the mainstream media, the mainstream press that we understand, the big branded corporate media houses, and that's how they started following the story. So we find this interesting pattern here, that the power here is distributed. We can always make an argument here that power is more with the ruling class, more shared with the corporate media, that's another thing. But yes, of course, people also do have a say, and they have a mechanism to react. So the narrative of this crisis changed from migrants being seen as virus spreaders to migrants being seen as sufferers. So while we are discussing the role of media in society, we cannot negate people's role in creating content and how that is impacting the society. Of course, there are larger questions here about misinformation, agenda, hate campaign, doctored videos, etc., etc. But then it also presents a platform for Indian population to do something here. What we really find very interesting is, and this is another study that's going to publish, this is from the second wave of COVID-19 crisis, is the tagging behavior of fixing accountability. And so this is what is going on here, that people have found an outlet to kind of seek answers from authorities. It happened both during the domestic crises, and it also happened during the second wave crises, the devastating second wave of COVID that killed so many people. That fixing of responsibility, that tagging behavior, asking questions. So people are also doing their own thing. So what are the lessons here for people like us, who are scholars, who are media educators, who are engaged with media literacy campaigns? I feel, and this is the research that I have conducted, I feel there is an immediate need for media literacy campaigns. People need to understand that there are real concerns around privacy, there are real concerns about doctored information, fake videos, etc. I think there is a need to bridge that gap. Journalists can do that, educators can do that. We can involve people from corporate world if we want to. There needs to be a sustained effort in teaching people that just because you get a device in your hand, which is very cheap, it doesn't mean that everything that you're going to read is right. People also need to be informed about the agenda of different entities, including the mainstream media's agenda. And that's where the mainstream media needs to question itself and educate public that everybody has something to earn from the conversation that is going on. And so I will conclude my presentation here. So if you have any questions, or if you need papers from me, I have copies. If you have ideas for research to collaborate on some of these issues that we are doing, I'm very open for that discussion as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope it was a useful investment of your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neelam, for your wonderful presentation. And the research paper which you are talking about. We have been working on same area. We worked on vaccine hesitancy, misinformation. Particularly in our department, like we have been writing on the use of social media, finding SOS help during COVID-19 second wave. And the paper is in review. So and the one more point is, when I was listening to you, I used to watch Noam Chomsky's video. So when he mentions about about the manufacturing the consent, so when you were speaking, so I was correlating the things with the Chomsky's concept of manufacturing the consent, that how media is being used and how corporates from the other sides, they use media for their own interest or to fill the interest of elite class. So thank you very much, Dr. Neelam, for your presentation. And now I may request the chief guest of the day, Professor Raghavendra P. Tiwari ji, He's the Vice Chancellor of Central University of Punjab. He has served as a Vice Chancellor in Dr. Hari Singh Gaud Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar, MP for 5 years, 6 months before joining the Central University of Punjab. He is a geologist, but he has keen interest in writing for newspapers. He has been writing on education reforms, education administrative reforms, and his popular articles have been published with The Hindu, Telegraph, The Tribune, Indian Express, Hindustan Times. So he is the member of University Grants Commission and the member of Executive Council of NAC. He has been awarded with the prestigious award in the field of geology in 2014 by Geological Society of India, Bangalore. The name of the award is Dr. S.M. Naqvi Gold Medal Award for the significant contribution in Indian geology. So now I request Professor Raghvendra P. Tiwari ji to address the audience. He mentioned me that there is some problem on his phone. So he's trying to connect.
Dr. Rubal, am I audible, please?
Yes, sir, you are audible now, sir. Very welcome to the panel.
My computer is not working. I've joined from my cell phone. I'm very happy to be associated with this very important discourse on the role of media. And I'm also happy to learn that we have some of the stalwarts in the field of media participating in today's deliberation. Sri Navjot Singh Johal, who himself is authority and very senior professor and has been conferred with very prestigious award. Dr. Gauri Shankar Chakravarti ji, and of course, Sri Amit Sarma, to whom I have known for the last 1.5 years, and I'm in constant touch with him. And I read Dainik Jagran with a lot of enthusiasm, and I get a lot of new insights on different aspects of life and society. Sri Jatin Gandhi ji, and the speaker to whom I just heard for the last 20 minutes, Ms. Sarma, and all those who are privy to this very important deliberation. Good evening to all of you and Sat Sri Akal. Media has been playing very important role in every time slot in the geological history, in whatever form media existed. Of course, we all know that the oldest form of media is the print media. Then electronic media came, and now it's all about explosion in the field of media, where social media came into being, and even the forms of social media is changing very fast. Almost every quarter of a year, some new social media platform emerges, and people abandon the old social media and they embrace the new one. And then the craze for new one also goes, and in the meantime, new platform emerges. So this is how now the humanity at large is connected with each other, and what is happening around the world, what is the worldview on different aspects of life, different civilizations or discourse that emerges. As we all know that media is very potent tool in disseminating the philosophies, the evils prevailing in the society, and the new form of knowledge that is emerging in the field of political science, in sociology, in psychology, and in almost all domain knowledge that we have and that we are imparting to our youth to make them globally competent. Like in any other field, the media is also, ailing with certain inherent diseases, and this happens when any field of knowledge or any field of operation in the world advances. So the core philosophy of that paradigm or that platform. Sometimes with the progress of time, it becomes blurred, and several forms of aberrations happen, and that is what is exactly happening with the media also. Now there's large scale dissentiment and disengagement with the media. There is talk always that as soon as we open the pages of the print media, we are flooded with the bad news, and likewise, as soon as we open the TV and any channel, then we are flooded with the news which create negative impact in our mind, in our thought process, and as a result, the interaction with the outside world, that is also adversely affected. During the last couple of years, there is the new field of research in media itself is emerging, like our fake news, on which my colleague Dr. Rubel specializes, and he's doing wonderful work, and his findings are also published in international journals of high impact factor. So this is one thing. The other one is, of course, this is a now decade-old paid news thing that is also happening, and in the social media. So all these are now flooded with negative news items, and sometimes these purported items are to damage this society and create a sort of false narrative in the mind of the people. And when these things are really engraved in the thought process, then even sometimes the behavior and conduct of a person is also adversely affected. There has been talk, and the justification given for all these sensational news that create negative impact is that the media serves the news that the society likes, or society is comfortable with, and society would like to listen. This is the justification normally that is given. But in any profession, even the very personal things, like I may say that I'll take the food that I like. This is because I'm living in a democratic setup. So whatever I want to eat, I'll eat. But if you analyze this very statement in the right context, what we'll find is that it's not that what I like I should eat, but I should eat what is beneficial to me, what is beneficial to my body. And likewise, this is applicable in every field. So it is not that that media always should emphasize on the news items that are liked by the people. Yes, if we say purely from the point of business, then this is there. But the media, or for that matter, any other profession, is not only for the purpose of business, but it is also serving the society. So if we believe on the paradigm that we will serve news to the society, what is good for the society, and which can take our civilizational discourse in the right direction. So if we start using media with this paradigm, that what is good for the society, what is good for the humanity, and what is the need of the time, and what is good for giving youth a new direction, so that they start engaging themselves in with positive mindset with the society and with all other functionalities of the evolving society. So if we start believing in this paradigm, then maybe we have some change. We always say, and that is true also, that change is inevitable, and the media is also undergoing tremendous change. And likewise, every aspect of life is undergoing change. But what is important is, at the end of the day, we need to see whether that change that is happening is good for the society or not. And if it is not good for the society, then we the human beings, we are so potent, we are so capable, the highest form of life on the earth, that we can change the discourse of the change, and we can set a new narrative for the change, which is good and for the humanity as a whole. So if we start believing on this, and then certainly the changes that are happening in the media, that will be good for the society, in almost every aspect of life. There has been tremendous improvement also in the newspapers, the classified news, covering almost all aspects. And the edit pages are really good as far as print media is concerned. And when I was in Sagar, mostly I was reading Dainik Bhaskar. But when I came to Batinda, and I take both the newspapers, but there's no edit page in Dainik Bhaskar. There are several other good things in Dainik Bhaskar, but there's no edit page. But in Dainik Jagaran, almost every aspect, there are articles invariably every day on the edit page on contemporary societal issues. Likewise, in other newspapers also, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, and Tribune, and all these. So they are, they're creating right impact as well, because they are educating the youth with the contemporary issues. But some of the negative feelings that are there about the media, if those can be taken care of, because media is such a powerful tool of discourse in the society that it can really mar or make the society. And though the intention of the media, people engaged in media, is making the society, but sometimes certain news items that create impact, negative impact, particularly the fake news, and also the type of rumorization that is happening in the social media. If these things can be taken care, then certainly the media can really play the role for which it is mandated for, and for which it has been known for. And it is in this context that this deliberation that is happening, and is anchored by my colleague Dr. Rubal Kanaugia, and many stalwarts in the field of media have joined to contribute to the success of this and give new insights into the role of media, which is really helpful to the society. And my best wishes, and I most sincerely hope that a time comes when we have a sort of international seminar in offline mode in our university, where we have some of the stalwarts from media, and our research scholars, the students, get exposure and get chance to interact with them and derive new insights, and how to really make our program much more experiential. Media studies, the important thing is that it is all 100% experiential. Whatever is done, that is actually done, and then only it is showcased. So it is sort of entire learning. Media learning is based on experiential learning. That is the beauty of this subject. When we have the seminar in offline mode in our university, that would be really good, and whatever support is needed from administration side, that would always be forthcoming. So with these few words, basically, neither I'm a social scientist nor a media man. I studied hardcore science, and that too not applied science, but theoretical science in geology. So this is what I wanted to convey. My best wishes to the organizers, and my compliments to those who are contributing their thought process, their wisdom, and their intellect in this day-long discourse on media. I would like to thank for making me part of this event. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very brief and very, though it is a brief, but it's very exploratory also. Like in this panel, we all are from media and communication research and from media industry. And thus that we sometimes might become biased towards the role of media. But though I know that we have researchers also, and they have been doing research and critically evaluating what media is doing to the society, and vice versa, how the people have been using the media for their different interests. So thank you very much, sir, for your presence. Thanks a lot, despite of your busy schedule that you gave us your time. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Dr. Gauri Chakrabarti to announce the Lifetime Achievement Award. So over to you, Dr. Gauri.
Thank you, Dr. Rubal. And before doing that, I'd like to convey my thanks to Professor Raghuvendraji on behalf of GMEC. So it is because of visionaries like you that GMAC will be able to, in the offline mode, we'll be able to hold events which will bind the media academicians across the country. So, sir, it was very interesting to hear your views on the importance of this discussion, which is around the media. So very, very grateful, sir, for your presence here. I would now like to announce, and it is my honor and privilege to, on behalf of GMEC, to announce the award for lifetime contribution to media and communication education to Professor Navjeet Singh Johal. And before we do the award ceremony, I'd just like to maybe share excerpts of his work with the audience. Professor Johal is a giant in his domain. He has an elaborate contribution to the world of media education, and he has been former head and dean at the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Punjabi University, Patiala, Punjab. He has been a Fulbright scholar, as we know, and to his credit are multiple books as editors, 2 books in Punjabi, 1 book in English. Professor Navtej also has numerous research papers and articles over his long spanning career. And what really catches the eye is that Sir also has an interest in poetry, and that is a distinct part of his personality. Sir, we also know that you've been guide to many research scholars over the years. These include MPhil research scholars, PhD scholars, and Professor Johal has been a member of the Board of Studies at GNDU Amritsar, Punjabi University, Patiala, at Guru Jambeshwar University, Hisar, at CDLU, Sirsa, Chitkara University. He's also part of various selection committees in universities and public service commissions. And I would like to invite Professor Raghuendra Tiwari to, along with me, confer this award for lifetime contribution to media and communication education to Professor Navjeet Singh Johal. So thank you very much, sir. And I'd like in the online medium to for the award to appear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can I request the last slide to appear, because there seems to be a technical problem? Can we just have the last slide when the award is visible on screen, please?
I guess Manushri can help in this.
Yeah, Manushree, if you can just go to the last slide. I think there is a broadband issue at her level. Dr. Rubal, you also have the last slide. Can you please share it on screen?
I'll just
Because
take a
that
minute.
is the, yeah, or I can share it. Okay, Manushree has. Can you just share the last slide, please?
Are you able to see my screen?
No, Manushree, you hold on to the recording because that is, it's a glitchy thing, right? Yes, yes. Yes, absolutely. The sound is missing though, Dr. Rubal. You'll have to share sound. But it's perfectly fine in the visual. Can you make it full screen, please, Dr. Rubal? Because we'll also take a screenshot of it in the final video. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So now.
And so I also wanted to mention that the hard copy of the certificate and the memento will be couriered to your home address shortly. Thank you so much for accepting the award. It's just a small way of recognizing the immense contribution that you have to media education.
I appreciate the way you have done it. Thank you very much.
So, and we
Now,
request
over
you
to
to
you,
give
sir.
the... Yes.
No, okay. I'm very thankful to Global Media Education Council conferring me with this award. I never thought that after retirement I will get any award. So thank you very much. When Professor Ravindra Tiwari was speaking, he pronounced my name as Navjot, not Navjeet. I have been facing this problem for the last 30 years or so. Navjot Sidhu has more media presence. He's much more popular than me because of different reasons. So definitely, so I was very happy. This has also happened to me once again. So media makes a lot of difference. So I would like to basically, I think, develop on my own career briefly. The way I saw media, the way I experienced media. I joined the department in 1983, and Punjab was suffering a lot of violence and murders and all sort of things were going on. And at that time, the focus was what role media could play in restoring the peace or making the life better for the people, or how media can fight against on its own the terrorism or the violence that was taking place in this world. But we found as a teacher, and I found many journalists also very helpless that we could not do much as far as this problem was concerned. So when we looked at the contents of the newspapers, especially after 1984, there was a lot of sensationalism, especially the media from Jalandhar, especially some newspapers. They published, all type of sensational stories, exaggerated stories. As a result, they gained circulation. A lot of print media became really, really powerful only in Punjab, only after 1984, and because that was the reason basically. But some of the newspapers who did not play do any sensational stories or kept their content very serious and all that, try to be impartial, did objective journalism, they suffered. So that was altogether a different experience during those years. And then came the 90s. 90s, we saw altogether a different phenomenon in Punjab. The terrorism came to an end during the early 90s, and then replaced by marriage palaces, Punjabi music industry, global channels, satellite channels, and all that, and everything changed. And media became basically commercial, totally commercial. When we look at in the 1980s and 90s, look at the relationship between society and media, I feel, and even now, generally we say that the media is very diverse. Society is also very diverse. Perhaps society is much more diverse than the media. Media has stopped becoming diverse, I think. If you pick up different newspapers, you would find very similar stories. If you watch different TV channels, you would find very similar stories. You would find, look at the serials, you would find because that is that if somebody has done this kind of story, the other channel would also like to do very similar story. If some channel has produced a particular type of serial, the other channel would also. I remember when I'm saying this, I'm remembering one of my teachers in Syracuse University, Professor George Comstock, in one of his class, he said the television, because television emerged in the 90s, the television is the only industry in the world, as compared to other industries, in which the competition leads to deterioration in the quality of the product. He said in all other industries, competition would lead to improvement in the quality of the product. I couldn't understand that. He said this in 1993. I have never seen commercial television. I went there, while watching Doordarshan. So while watching Doordarshan, I could not understand that. Then he has written this in his book also, Evolution of American television. And the basic reason was a commercialization of media. And in his book also, in the same book, somewhere he has written that he said about the history of American television. He said the golden decade of American television began in early 1950s and ended exactly a decade later. That was the only golden period in the history of American television. That was the 1950s. The same thing I think happened to Indian television in 1980s. 80s I think was a golden decade for Indian television. Very good programs, Hum Log, Bunyad, Tamas, and many more were there. But later on, what happened? All of us know it. I would like to sum up this point by quoting Bhisham Sani. I got a chance to interact with Bhisham Sani, well-known author, brother of Raj Sani. I just asked him, it was in late 90s, he came to our university and I got a chance to sit with him and talk for an hour or so. I just asked him that Thomas was very famous. Okay, people watched Thomas like anything. It was such a well-made serial by Govt. He said, "Wouldn't you get a lot of offers after that?" Generally, you produce a good program, you write a good script, and you get a lot of offers. And he very sadly, I still remember the expressions on his face. Very sadly, he said, "No, offers came, but what I can write, they are not ready to make, and what they asking me to write, I cannot write that." So that's how drastically the things changed in the 1990s. And for media educators, it was all together to shift the gear again, and think differently. And what happened in the last 20 years or so, I think you're all familiar with that. So the new media and all sort of things came, and now the online and all these things people are facing. So as far as Indian society is concerned, I think media is has a close association with the society, but at the same time, somehow it has lost that connect also. Once I would like to give one example, especially elite media, especially English media. Once a editor of an English daily came to our university. So one of the participants asked the editor, "Why don't you publish the news about the farmers who have committed suicide during the recent past?" He said, "No, they are not our readers." Without pausing, without giving a thought to it, instantly he said, "No, they are our not readers." So that's a big question. Should the newspapers publish only the story of those people who read them? Okay. should television, or rather apply the same thing to the TV people who watch television? You know, do television tell the stories of those people? Perhaps not. So there is a huge gap between the reality shown on our media, especially on our screen, and the reality that the people are facing. Okay, the same thing was said by Professor P. Sainas a long time back. He said, "Kid, dying farmers, they do not publish the news about because the dying farmers do not read newspapers." So that's I think a long time back, as far as TV is concerned, the committee another problem. This is basically related to the talent, the people who work in the media, and the big majority of them, they come from the cities. They are urban people, and they might try to be unbiased towards the rural society, but definitely they cannot come out of that. And that's why the rural society, the large society, massive society, big society, and the society which is basically suffering, which is facing problems, is being ignored by the media by and large. And during if you even talk about the films, where do you find the stories of the common man now? Disappeared. On television, there are the common man do not find any space on the television screen. It's not exactly the same as far as Indian newspapers are concerned, but newspapers are also getting affected by television. It's 10 years back, a student came to me. He was working. He started working for an English daily in Chandigarh. He said, "Sir, do you read my features?" I said, "I do read. I might have missed one or two, but generally I read." He said, how these are. I said, "Good. Generally you write well. You have a good command over language, and you write well. So thank you. Congratulations." He said, "No, sir, I need some critical comments from you." I said, "I have noticed that you write about the young and the rich." He said, "Sir, what to hide from you?" He touched my feet, and he said, "Sir, I cannot not like to hide anything from you. The fact is, we have got instructions from the management that we must write about the young and the rich, because the money, the basic thing is how to extract money from here and there, advertisers and other people, and from the money will come from not from the common people, not from the chuggi chowki people, not from the poor farmer who are coming. The money would come from the advertiser. So advertiser has taken the center stage. Sometimes I feel that these the media run not for the people, but for the advertisers. Okay, so that's why one time back, some foreigner came to our university. He watched that television for some time. I said, "Sir, what do you think about our television?" He said, "On your television, advertisements are the best programs. They're very concise, precise, to the point, attractive, colorful, sensational, appealing, and all that." So the other stuff I do not find matching to that item. So that's those kinds of and I feel personally, since commercialization will occur, automatically it will lead to sensationalism. Briefly, I would like to tell the story of an American journalist, John Krakauer. That happened long time back in 1996. Okay, he wanted to climb Mount Everest. He didn't have the money. Then he contacted a magazine, outside magazine, and that magazine arranged the money for him. He was given 2 guides, Rob Hill, I remember the name of one person, and he was supposed to cover that event live, going up to the mountain Everest, top to Mount Everest, and reporting it live for the magazine and for some of the TV channels. What happened on the last day? There was a warning about a snowstorm, but the management of the channels of the magazine, as well as the guides, they insisted that we must go to the top of the Mount Everest. They went up to the top of the mountain, but when they were coming back, the snowstorm actually rolled in. Somehow, John Krakauer was able to come to his camp, but he became unconscious. But when he regained consciousness, he found 8 dead bodies in front of outside his camp office. And after that, he wrote a world famous book and bestseller, I think, in 1998, Into Thin Air. And he left journalism. He's saying, "No, it has become insensitive profession. Okay, so these are some of the issues that I have felt during my career as well as now. And I think media should try to, some of the previous speakers that try to touch upon the media literacy, that's very, very important. That I have realized by teaching in the university, going to the colleges, interacting with different people, that even the educated people, most educated people are not media educated. They're not. They're not. They're literate. They got very high degrees, but they are not media literate. So so I think that that's a very, very important thing. And the other thing is, because my journalist friends are there on the panel, and how to, I would say, regain the lost credibility. That's another challenge for the Indian media today. Lost credibility. I'm sure you have lost not all the credibility, but some credibility. I would like to, my department was founded by Kuldeep Nair. So I would like to quote here one quotation of Kuldeep Nair. He said, credibility is like virginity. Either it exists or it does not. There is no in between. There's no in between. Okay, so we have to do something so that the Indian media again gain credibility and give some new shape or new form to Indian media. I know that we journalists have a lot of limitations. The managements have become more important. The general managers, the advertising managers, the circulation managers, they have become more important than the editors. But whatever we can do within our limits, I think we must do about it. So thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful talk. And it has been always a privilege to listen to you and to be in your company, whether it is online or offline. And though I could not
offline,
get an opportunity,
next time offline would be better.
Yes, sir, definitely. And though I could not get a chance to sit in your class, but I remember whenever I got an opportunity to meet you, and every time your words, your contribution towards scholarship encourages us to do something better in academics and in our personal life. I would like to quote one incident. When I want to start my PhD, my guide, Professor Kamlesek Duggal sir, wants me to work on one particular topic. And I requested him, sir, that I want to work on this Sichewal's work, that how he has been encouraging people. The Sir Balbir Singh Sichewal I am talking. That how he has been encouraging the people, motivating them and asking them to join and to clean a Kali Bai. And his efforts have been turned into a mass movement, and he has been awarded with the Padma Shri also for his work in the field of environment and river restoration. So I went to Punjabi University Patiala and to meet Jol sir. Duggal sir told me, "Je Jol sir allow kar denge, then I'll allow you to do PhD on this topic." So I've been to his department. I discussed my topic. He told me that I have a class now. You have 10 minutes to speak. So you speak for 10 minutes and then I'll speak for 5 minutes and I leave for my class. So ultimately what happened is that our conversation went for 45 minutes. And at the end, he told me that you know lot many things about it, but you should know how to limitize your area now. Because ऐसा ना हो कि that you might not be able to submit your PhD because you know little extra about the topic. Because so that I kept that thing in my mind, and that one suggestions that has helped me to submit my PhD well in time, and I was able to submit. Thank you, Jol sir, for your wonderful suggestion. And because of that PhD and the work which you have done in media academics and in media research, and we acknowledge your contribution, sir. We are very impressed with your research profile, sir. And I know that after 1993, no media scholar from Punjab was able to get a Fulbright fellowship. And this is a dream to many. So thank you very much, sir, for encouraging us and keep blessing us. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, your mic is mute, sir.
That I didn't take the class on that day. That's what we were telling the audience.
No, sir.
I asked you, to speak 10 minutes and I will take 5 minutes. That you said 45 minutes. That means I didn't take the class on that day. That's what you were telling?
Sir, what happens next, I don't remember, but I remember what has happened in my life because of those 45 minutes. So thank you very much, sir. So now I'll take an opportunity to invite Mr. Amit Sharma, my senior colleague and very good friend and elder brother, who has been working with various English newspapers. He has worked with the Indian Express, Hindustan Times, and the Daily Post. And I have seen that he's a rare bilingual reporter and editor who has command over the English, Hindi, and Punjabi, and he is working with the two. Very quickly, he shifted to Hindi newspaper because in Hindi newspapers, the pressure is of different. Like there is a pressure of different things. In English medium, the reporters and the assistant editors, their pressures and their work style is different. But now he's adapted to Hindi also. And now I request Mr. Sharma to address the gathering, because now from the media side, he can speak that what kind of pressures are there and how you have been contributing towards the society. Sir, I would like to mention one small incident that in my wife's schools, as fatherless student, she qualified a NEET exam, and she was able to get a seat in a medical college in Punjab, but though the fees is very high. So what comes in my mind, I requested Mr. Amitji, that if we can do a story on her, and I requested him also that I don't want her name to be published in the paper, and not her photograph, even not her photographs. So can we do a story? So he taken he come forward and he asked his reporter to cover a story. And then after that news story, that we received a call from CM office, and they agreed to pay her fees. Though then the election code happened, and then in election code, no government help we can get. But ultimately, at the end, because of that story, we spoke to an IS officer in CM house. He called DC Muxar, and then he beared the 50% of the fees. So this is how media has worked in highlighting the concerns of marginalized people. And the girl has joined MBBS course. And this is the role I see in media, and the other sides also. The media sometimes it unifies us and sometimes it divides us. And now over to Mr. Amit.
Very good evening to all. In fact, all thanks for the kind words Dr. Rubal had about the media and the organization, or say there have been media has been receiving, I say, being editor, we receive brickbats, we receive accolades and everything, and that's a part of life. But before I start discussing today's topic, I feel it's all my pleasure to join you all today. And I am, in fact, very thankful to the organizing team and Dr. Rubal, who gave me this opportunity to be here, not just to address, but to reconnect with few people with whom perhaps I had lost contacts, the regular face-to-face contact, especially Jatinji, my former colleague and a good friend. We used to sit with Hartosh and all. And especially my sincere regards to Dr. Johal. Dr. if you, I don't know whether you remember me or not, I was you were my external examiner in university, Dr. Dasan. I was Dr. Dasan's student, and I got
I remember,
only
now
one. After that, I got one opportunity to speak to you regarding my wife's PhD. And today I am interacting with you, say maybe online, but one-on-one after that 97, I believe.
Oh.
After 97, we are.
Great.
My sincere regards to you. And I have also
change over time.
Like Dr. Rubal mentioned about his PhD. When I briefly talk about that incident also, when you were my external examiner, I was already working. I was in TAU and I was almost employed with the Indian Express. I was colleague of Mr. Jatin, the junior colleague. So at that time, you came for and I was a bit worried because I was writing dead against the university authorities and everywhere. I was writing quite a lot, that journalism of courage which Express used to imbibe in us. So that was on full display at that time and beginning years. So I was a bit worried. Mr. Venu Prasad, the one who is now Special Principal Secretary to CM, he was a registrar. He told me, he says, you might face some brickbat from the authorities. They might. Then when you came and you made me at ease and you just mentioned one thing, यार अमित क्या पूछना है, तुम तो रोज अखबार में पढ़ लेते हैं, तुमको अब जर्नलिज्म तो कर ही लिया है. And that was, I still remember those words, and the moment you said it's just a formality, and finally I sailed through those times. That's a greatness, like Dr. Rubal mentioned. I also thought I'll just start with that. So today, the topic, you spoke about the credibility. Definitely, it's a credibility at stake also at times, but still, since I started with the Express, that they imbibe that journalism of courage. You have to write whatever you want to write. And then it was, say, all those years, journalism of hope. I always try to, say, imbibe those things. Only the journalism of courage. You can't be only doing the journalism of courage, or you can't be doing only the journalism of hope. If you do the journalism of courage, it instills, it gives the society some hope. So I always try, and I always tell my team, whether this was the Indian Express, this was HT when I was heading in HT, and then now my Jagran team, okay, this is a journalism of hope. We work on certain ethics, like today's topic, we had that media and society. I believe that this is, I was discussing with Dr. Rubal, this is a very, very generalized topic. We can talk about media, a lot of aspects are there. If we talk about society, again, the plus and minus contributions of even the society is there. So I said, I am not an academician. I'll just talk about what in journalism, or that all those years I started from a cub reporter and now heading an organization as a resident editor. So, and that too, within that you talk about the elite media, that's the English media. I spent 16, 17 years in elite media. Now for the past 6 years, I am into the vernacular media. So when you mentioned about the elite media, this reminded me of words of one of the chief minister, former chief minister. I met him once and I asked him, when I was in English media, he mentioned, यार थोड़े अखबार दा जड़ा अखबार हुंदा है दा की फायदा हुंदा कुछ नहीं हुंदा ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਾਸਸ ਦੇ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੀ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਆਈ ਸੈਡ ਕਿ ਮਾਸਸ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤਾਂ ਓਪੀਨੀਅਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੋਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੋਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਔਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੋਟ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਲੋਕ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਨੇ then at that time it was like Rubal mentioned ki I adopted, I'm one of the rare bilingual. So at that time I started, I thought that was came to my mind, I should try something in the masses, the journalism of the masses also. Let it be all those years have been the elite media, now let it be the masses. And really, this is a very, very learning experience as an editor, because I used to interact with my editors who were solely from, I can say, from the English media. Now, being an editor, I interact with my senior editorial board members who are heading India's largest this chain of newspapers, all different medias, vernacular medias. So then I felt that there's a lot of difference between the English media, like you talked about, and the media of the masses. Like as an academician, you also have the same viewpoint. As a politician, when I interacted with various people, they had also the same point. There's a lot of difference between the priorities and everything. Dr. Rubal mentioned about the pressures. Yes, pressures are there, but I personally feel, and I learned from my editors and my journalism, that it depends upon the individual editor, that to what extent you undergo those pressures or how you withstand those pressures. So, say, when we talk about the media and society, I believe that these are the very two important aspects of the contemporary social, you could say, realities in any part of the world. But I feel the more important in here is that when the society is undergoing a transition, it's going a transitional change, like it's undergoing modernization, I must say. You could say it is undergoing the a new phase of the democracy, which we are witnessing and debating in all sort of mediums. And besides all that, the most important is when this change is happening in society with the multicultural complex social systems. This becomes very, very important. And in this context, I feel that our society, or say Indian society in particular, this fits very into this case where we are undergoing a modernization, almost irrespective of the different faith systems, customs, rituals, you could say region, caste, color, everything. Irrespective of all this, we are every society, part of the society is undergoing that modernization phase. So this extent may different, but additionally, when we talk about the media, so here the role of the media, I believe, becomes very, very important. Frankly speaking, when the media has always been an organ of the say public or the society or the media. Anyone said something?
You may carry.
That's fine. So when I talk about when I entered into Jagran, it's a media which was founded at the time when this Indian national movement was at the best, this Quit India movement, 1942. So at the time, since that media was the kind of organ of the people against the feudal oppression, which the colonial rule or whatsoever it is. Now, frankly speaking, this in democratic state and in this context, now I feel that India is, to certain extent, the freedom of the press and the media that is inconceivable. I stress on this point because of the problems that India is facing these days. And in such a, whatever we see, we talk about the mass poverty, we talk about the communal tensions, we talk about the anything, freedom of speech, whatsoever it is. There are always two different viewpoints. There's a complete polarization. And that polarization within media, I believe, stems from the polarization in the society. It's not that the media houses are polarized. I personally feel that, like when we talk about, like you, one of the speaker, researcher, she talked about the 2014 phenomena, tweets and everything. Tweets, I don't feel that tweets or the social media or this can make or make the fortune of the society, or they can make the fortune of the individuals, or make the fortune of the politics. They can change politics. If this has been happening, then in Punjab, certainly the one who was almost on the virtual world, like you mentioned, Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu, he ran a sustained emotional campaign, a lot of things, but they didn't withstand anything. So I personally feel that I may be wrong in academicians or the researchers' viewpoint, but as an editor, I feel that whatever we talk about that the media is doing this wrong, this is something which has creeped into the media, that all stems from the society. Whatever the society wants, since media is a part of now more or less, it's like I said, initially when pre-independence, it was kind of a organ which was fighting against the oppression, but nowadays it's considered as an industry. We term media as an industry. When we term media as an industry, then certainly all those aspects will be taken care of. Now, what I feel, I may be wrong again, when we talk about the society and the media, researchers keep doing researches on that. But I never came across any research which, when it gives an opinion, it never talks or goes into the reasons behind that, the reasons I say of the foundation of the media. My suggestion is that the researchers must, whenever they do research concerning media and the society, or all those things, they must go into the details, what we call that, of the media's economic, or the foundation, then choices, nature of choices of, you could say, the research. The one can be, I say, when they study, whether they study, I'm not aware if you might have, researchers might have been doing that, but still I feel that I never came across, and I was never told, I never read in any research paper that they studied that whether the media, those people who are working in that media, what is their sociological and psychological aspects. Number two, whether with the media they are studying, which is their part of the sample or their subject of the study, whether that media has the kind of economic setup. What is the economic conditions or the economic backups of that media house? Now, when we never, because if that is a profitable, or then obviously the results would be different. So when the researcher will go into those details, the answers to certain questions which were raised during the discussion, they will definitely come up with a very concrete answer. When we say that this organizational setup, like for instance, during this Kisan movement, there was a lot of debates. This media is in favor of the Kisan. This media is in favor of against the corporates. This media is doing this. But we were making, people were making, or the researchers or the social media or the society was making judgments on the basis of what they were seeing on. But I believe the researchers, whenever they do research, they must go into all these aspects, the economical setups of that, their societal, you could say, affiliations, then finally their economics. Because when we talk about the media as an industry, the economics is the most important part of that industry. So these were the few points I was mentioning. So I believe that the second point is, like sir mentioned, rural journalism is dying. Rural journalism not being addressed. I do agree. Rural journalism has been limited just to the role of panchayat or something, whatever happening. In Jagran, we have a kind of, I have what difference I found in the English media and this Hindi journalism, especially in organization. I can't say about the whether other organizations. The organization where I worked in English and Hindi, I found that in this organization where I worked, Dainik Jagran, it has a written editorial philosophy. When I took as an editor, I was made to, when I took my charge in the presence of the editorial board, I was given an editorial philosophy of the organization. And there's mentioned 10 points. As an editor, I had to take a pledge, like ministers take a pledge. I never seen any editor taking a pledge. I was made to undergo a pledge and writing that I will work on these 10 points. And these 10 points included the point which Johal sir mentioned. One was rural journalism. That is very, very important. And apart from, we're given 10 sarokars. As an editor, my care is decided on how much I write on those issues. So I don't think that is dying. The point is what is dominating. Why that is dominating? Again, that stems from the societies, because society on the TV, they want to watch that. In newspapers, they want to read that. The newspaper is an industry. Television is an industry. They want to sell. They want to get the TRP. They want to get the advertisement. They have to build up again. The point I stressed on, the researchers have to look into that economic setup. Now, economics of that comes from the advertisement. Advertisements demand all that. So that's a very vicious circle of the industry. So whenever we examine or make judgments, I believe that has to be taken consideration. So it's in fact that our nation is, I believe that our nation or Punjab or anyway, in terms of area, we compare the Western media, we compare the Punjab media with the national media. I believe that these medias even can't be compared, because in our all nation, basically in huge of terms of its area, we say that it's a much bigger than the Europe, and comprises of the very complex, like I mentioned, the societal systems or the population, where we can't compare those things and present a model that Western media, we must emulate Western media, or in Western media something this happens. So these were the few points which I sought to mention. I'll not go much into the theoretical part. I talked about the very personal, from my inner self, being from a Govt editor. Like it was mentioned that journalists, I never faced any sort of very strong pressure, because I started with a Govt reporter. I worked as a district head, I worked as a subdivision head, I worked as an assistant editor, associate editor, now editor. I present the policies to the board of this governance. So I never faced any such big situation where, as an editor or as a reporter, I had to surrender to the wishes of the GMs, or I had to surrender to the wishes of the management. In HT, we did in Express, we did a lot of stories which shook those governments. In HT, we did a lot of stories, like I did those with Manish, we did the city center scam, we did the Wilkes removal, which he was removed, the story. We did a lot of stories, but organizations, internal, I believe that, and I tell my team, never assume that an editor will sit on a story and he will kill your story. You have to convince, you have to sell your story. If you we sold a story, I have not named the story in HT. It was, everybody tried to suppress the story. Mr. Jatin might be privy to that. But when there was a meeting with the organization head, or say the owners, our editor and our team, we mentioned one thing, that this is the benefit organization will gain, is this benefit which you will get from the society can never match the benefit which the governments can give. And the owners were convinced, the stories were done, stories were flashed, the government went to the courts against the stories, our organization fought those orders in the courts, and finally that became a big issue. So that is what I learned, and I tell my team also, you have to convince, as a reporter, you have to convince me that this story will bring this to the organization. Forget about the revenue, forget about the anything. You have to convince me, and whenever they convince me, anybody I can easily challenge, because nobody can. I didn't face any pressures. I never let these pressure pass on to any of the down. As far as the policies of the newspaper is concerned, I just mentioned, like, we as a Jagran, we have certain very clear-cut policies as an editor. We don't, whenever we use to propagate that ideology of the organization, we use the edit pages. It's not the news pages, it's the edit pages. We as an editor, I write, I propagate the organizational viewpoint, whether this is the Kisan Andolan, whether this is the 370, whether this is the Ram Mandir, or any of the issues which are plaguing the Punjab now. We ran after the elections and between the counting formation of the government, we ran a big campaign, Suniya Sarkar Punjab Ki Pukar. We spoke to eminent scholars, we spoke to various industrialists, we spoke to a lot of people. We prepared 10-point agenda for the government, and that's a part of the that campaign. We spoke to the chief minister, and we are going to present him, and he assured us that we'll work on that. Rural journalism is part of that. We address the issue. So this is the contribution I believe the media can give to the society. It's not exactly that we publish their news. How we can contribute to the society, that is more important, I believe. For my newsroom management, my news editor is there. For my newsroom, for the normal inputs or outputs, my different editors are there. Being an editor, I am told, my job is how I, as an editor, I bridge the gap between the society and the media. So I work on that. I keep on discussing certain things with various academicians, various scholars, even Dr. Rubal. I keep on asking about what kind of campaign we can run, which can bridge this gap between the society. I believe that when we contribute to the society, society is certainly going to contribute to the growth of the organization. And that is, so I conclude with this point that certainly society and media, these are, like I stated earlier, these are the both are have very interpersonal links. Whatever we give to the society, society gives back to us. And whatever we contribute to the society, society contributes to the growth of the organization. And that is the motive, and that should be the motive. Thank you very much. With all those words, I again thanks this global team to give me this opportunity to have interacted and listened to the those people whom I lost contact. I am more happy than in getting connected with those than participating in this or delivering a lecture kind of thing, because I am not a man who gives to the classrooms or lectures or anything. I just spoke whatever I said. Thank you very much.
Definitely, Amitji, that role needs to be debated and discussed from the 360-degree angle. And you briefed about that what your paper or how you have been dealing with the practical problems of media industry, and again that the giving back to the society. So thank you very much. So now I would like to invite our session chair, Mr. Jatin Gandhi. He is a ICFJ Knight Fellow, Chevening Scholar, and he is a trainer, fact checker, and currently he is doing research on media literacy and trauma awareness. So he has a vast experience of more than 24 years across the working with the different media organizations like Hindustan Times, The Hindu, India Today, Indian Express, Star News, and NDTV. And I feel fortunate that today we have his presence with us as a session chair. Now I request request to Jatinji to summarize this discussion and give his concluding remarks. Jatinji.
Thank you so much. I just have one grouse. You keep forgetting that I teach at the Times School of Media. So, and it's an honor to be here with my senior and my colleague, Dr. Gauri Chakravarti. It's an honor to be here with Professor Jol. And it's been really wonderful listening to all these pearls of wisdom from the very young Dr. Neelam Sharma and to the very experienced Professor Jol, and the range in between, Professor Chakrabarti, Amit, my old friend and colleague from the Indian Express. He will excuse me for not calling him Mr. Sharma, but that's how we speak in journalism, actually. And I'm a new entrant into the world of academics. I'm still a journalist at heart. So, we started the session with very, very astute and very sharp insights from Dr. Neelam Sharma. I mean, in a very brief period of time, she summed up a lot of problems that we see in the context of media and society, or media in society. So, the questions that she raised, that agenda, if there is agenda setting happening, we in the theoretical world, we discuss agenda setting, but is it really the media doing the agenda setting? Or is there someone in the background or the backdrop that we do not see, or we perhaps now have begun to see, that is really setting the agenda, and we keep thinking or keep blaming the media for agenda setting? If there is gatekeeping happening, is it really the way it used to be? Are people really checking what is going into print or going into publication? The issues that other people also raised, Amit spoke about keeping the editorial slant or the editorial thrust of a publication separate from the from the news coverage. And now these days, we see that there is a merger. There is a lot of opinion. There is a lot of, if you switch on your television screen, your news television, there is even shouting and screaming from people who are the editors of these channels. And there is a clear, cut, amalgamation of news coverage with opinion. We see agenda pushing, more than news coverage. The relevance of the media is something that Dr. Neelam Sharma also discussed. Are we Are we becoming irrelevant? One, because there is social media, which is more democratic, but also because we have stopped serving the people. If we are really the fourth pillar of of democracy, then we also need to ask ourselves whether we are performing that role or not, which is directly linked to media credibility, media accountability. But because we had a practitioner from journalism, an editor on the panel, he raised points that would make some of us uncomfortable. But it really gives me the opportunity to turn the topic on its head and talk about the role of society in media, right? So when he says that media is only a part of society and it's going to give back to society what is demanded of it, something that Professor Tiwari had raised, the issue of whether he had used words like ailing media, disenchantment, disengagement. So he spoke about the justification that media practitioners give, which is that media serves what society likes. But the fact is, and we come from that school of journalism, all of us, is that it's not just journalism is not just about what people want to know, but it's also about what people should know. And this is a constant struggle. And now we see the shift happening, which Professor Johal also mentioned in his talk about how competition is reducing the quality of television. So and this is something that we can now say about the larger media landscape. It's not just television or entertainment. It's perhaps we are in the business of now infotainment and TV channels or digital media platforms, and to some extent sections of newspapers also talking about infotainment. Serving information that titillates or serving information that entertains. Now, for students of economics here, they will realize that they will remember that we read about giffen goods, which are cheap goods. And when there is economic depression, the demand for cheap goods or low quality goods goes up. So that is the economic depression. But perhaps we are in a cultural depression. That's why these culturally cheap goods are becoming more popular. And if we want the media to perform its role, its function, and really function as the fourth pillar of democracy, then we must ask the question that are we willing to, as a society, pay the cost? Are we going to leave journalism to a handful of media organizations which have corporate ownership, or which are run by the advertiser? Repeatedly, it was mentioned that the advertiser is paying for your media. The average newspaper that costs 60 rupees to produce, only a sixth of the cost is borne by the reader. 50 rupees comes from the advertiser. Now, in India, the largest advertiser is the government itself, right? And if the government is not conducive to the idea of the fourth pillar of democracy, it will obviously start strangulating that fourth pillar or squeezing that that 50 rupees out of the 60 rupees which comes from the advertiser. And if you leave out the government, even the corporate sector that pays that 50 rupees, that is also going to exert its pressures. So this is something that we need to talk about when we talk about media literacy, which several speakers mentioned. One, I'm a media literacy trainer. We recently concluded a project in India for the BBC, which ran over 6 months and which covered schools. So, and it was students who were in their late teens. But I believe media literacy should actually start very early, right? And what society needs to give to the media to sustain a democratic media so that it's part of the large performing its function correctly, we need to set up accountability mechanisms, right? And of course, I'll give you the example of coming to competition reducing quality. In 1976, there was a film produced on the cooperative milk movement in Gujarat. It was a crowd-funded film. The villagers whose story it was had contributed 1 rupee each. The film was Manthan, right? It went on to win the national award as the best film and the national award for best screenplay. So we need to think of these models of crowdfunding journalism or using public money, because the other three pillars, remember, the other three pillars of democracy that we talk about, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, they are funded for by public money. So maybe we need to have something like the BBC model in the UK, where a certain part of the license fee goes into funding journalism. We need to create, as civil society, we need to create institutions that are constantly demanding accountability from the media. That is where credibility will come from. And credibility comes from, as Professor Joel mentioned, sensitivity, right? And it also comes from integrity, something that Amit also mentioned. Now, the media of the elite versus media of the masses. Of course, this is a colonial hangover. We had colonial masters for such a long time. So their language, which I am speaking right now, which we are all speaking, is not something that we can do away with, because, in the life of a human being, 10, 15, 20 years is a very long time. But in the life of a nation, a churning will perhaps continue for a few centuries. And then it's also the global language. So instead of, perhaps fighting this, we need to create avenues in which both, the language media, the languages of the people, and the language of the ruling class, they serve the people, they serve the masses, right? And another issue that was raised was the polarization in the media, right? And to blame the society for a polarized media is problematic. But if you understand, as Amit said, the economic, psychological, sociological constraints, in which the media functions, then there are really shackles, and around journalism and journalists particularly. We can only get rid of these when we have a better interface between media and society, when we do not imagine, or when we do not treat media as an industry, but as a service that is necessary for the democratic project. I think that pretty much sums up what I want to say. I've been brief because I understand we are running out of time. So I'd be happy to take any questions or criticism if I missed out any important parts.
Yeah, Jatin, thank you so much. Dr. Rubal, I'm pitching in here. There's a question which is very related to what Jatin has just shared. So if you permit,
Yes.
I'll just read that question. It's from
Please,
one of our attendees, Vivavati, if I'm pronouncing her name right. And she or he has posed that it's a wonderful session. I'm a student of political science. My question is how to create awareness regarding the use of social media, especially among students. Since you were discussing, you very sharply kind of funneled the points of the day. So we can maybe begin with your views and Joel Saab's view on how can we really bring in that awareness in students.
So the short answer is media literacy. And media literacy, as I mentioned earlier, it cannot wait when you are at the level of the university, or when you are employed somewhere, or you're a college student. It has to start very early. We have to educate the parents first. Professor Joel mentioned that we have literate people, but they are not educated. So this has to be done on war footing. There are other countries have models in which media literacy is a priority of the government. So if we are indeed, we profess to be a welfare state, if we are indeed that, this is a challenge that we need to, take by the horns. And the sooner the better. The more widespread, the more useful it will be. Results will show in a few years, not immediately, but we have to make a start.
Same question to Professor Joel and also to Amitji, that what is your view to create awareness regarding use of social media, especially among students, sir?
I think first we have to make the parents aware. Young children, they start using the new technology or new media at a very early stage, especially during the last 2 years, because schools were shut and they were forced to go online, and they were definitely, especially among the people who are poor and illiterate, the parents who are poor and illiterate, the children would tell we are studying, we are taking lessons or we are doing assignments, but they will be doing something else. So some of the parents do not understand, but some of the other parents who encourage the children to use these gadgets, and when they get used to it, or going back with this narcotizing dysfunction of the media. So we have to make them aware that how bad this addiction is. Let's make the parents, the teachers, I don't think so. Students come to the classes at a very later stage, not at a very early stage. They have to start this de-addiction process at a very early stage, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, and especially during these times. Teachers definitely can play this role, play some role, but I think the first we have to, make the parents more literate.
Any comments, Amitji?
Absolutely, I agree with what Jatinji and Sir said. The media that you can't make them, this literacy can't be started at when you enter into a college or a university or in a classroom. This is something like from the school level, like Sir mentioned, online education. This has actually kind of derailed, and that I personally, because I am father of a young boy, I found, because his foundation, like this literacy or anything, this has to be started when my elder son is in 9th, but the younger one is he has got into the 5th. So when this COVID or online thing started, that was the formation years. He was in second. And that was the time when he used to know in classroom how you learn the things. It's not the education or the books, but something you learn about the society, you learn about the gadgets, or a lot of things. But they spent everything, all those 3 years online. And when suddenly he went for the offline exams, he was a bit confused, and we faced a lot of problems. Somehow, since we managed that, he sailed through everything. But that is the point. It can't be in the classroom. It has to be started from the day one, or we learn from our families. When you are in families and in the classroom, this is a kind of, again, the society where you learn. Okay, what's how to be used.
So I think everybody is echoing the same thing, that media literacy is as critical to this conversation as is the content on media platforms. And Dr. Rubal, there's another question which is in the Q&A box, but it concerns cinema. So I will request Ankit Vaishnav that you please attend a conversation on cinema one of these days at GCC, and we can address it there. If Dr. Rubal, you agree with me, then we can close this session.
Yes. Like I will share the next seminar's link with Mr. Ankit Vaishnav. He is our PhD scholar.
Okay.
So now
in a nutshell, like if we say his answer to be given in yes or no, my answer is yes. Whatever he's saying, I would say yes.
He asked, like, actually what he asked is my question.
The recent the Kashmir Files controversy, that has answer itself. Like he's mentioned,
even earlier also in many films we have seen that cinema has a huge potential.
Cinema has a rather, I feel, bigger impact than maybe I'm a movie buff, that is why I'm saying.
Actually, Amitji, as a filmmaker, this will take us to another 2 hours of conversation. So it's really today we really were able to look at television.
At least Dr. Gauri's area, so she.
Yeah, I think Ankit knew that there's an expert on the panel. That's why he's asked this question. Ma'am, please spend a few minutes just to
at another level, because what happens is the members, they attend every evening, and we'd love Ankit for you to join again. I can also share my email ID through Dr. Rubal, and we can definitely have a conversation.
Yes.
So Dr. Rubal, great conversation. Over to you now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gauri. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude, my indebtedness to all the panelists. Right beginning from our keynote speaker, Dr. Nilip Sharma. She was very busy, but she attended, she accepted our request, and she presented her research. And then our own Vice Chancellor, Professor Raghavendra P. Tiwari ji, In future, I wish if we could invite the same panel in our campus, and we'll be discussing it for more more length, like for 3 or 4 hours. So it will be an open platform, and no like the online medium can take a place of a physical presence and the dialogue which we conduct in interpersonal way. And then I take an opportunity to say thanks to Professor Najee Jol. Sir, it was an honor for us that you accepted our invite. You accepted our a small this is some sort of acknowledgement, like we are acknowledging, sir, your efforts, and many of your students are scaling new heights only because of the teacher and the scholarship which you imbibe among them. So then I also thanks to Amit Sharma ji, and he entertained our invitation, and whatever he spoke from his heart. And we might be like me being a media scholar, we might disagree, and this like sometimes we agree and disagree. This is the beauty of the dialogue, so the dialogue must continue. So thank you very much, Amitji. And now I must say I must express my gratitude to our dear friend, a senior colleague, Professor Jatin Gandhi ji. Why I'm using word professor now with him. Today I was listening to a professor of sociology. So that after Jol's I rarely find a professor whose content tempts me, like whenever they are speaking, and actually the contents come out of like their heart, and from the knowledge, exactly the knowledge is coming, the critical school of thought, the way they are expressing the things. In mass communications professors, I rarely like please forgive me, but I rarely see such kind of, not potential, but the zeal and thought of the critical schools, what I see in sociology's professors. So today I really enjoyed your talk, Jatinji, and I'm sure the student must have enjoyed it. And now I would like to express my thanks to Dr. Gauri Chakrabarti. She's a professor of film studies, and she has been with us from the last 2 days while we were preparing for this webinar. And rather, I should have called her regarding some details. And what happened is, I remain busy with today's morning schedule. There was 2 talks by one professor of sociology in our campus. So she called me, and she asked me to complete these 2 or 3 tasks. So I express my gratitude to you, madam, and thanks to the president of GMSEC, Professor KG Suresh, and the General Secretary, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, and the other team members. And I also say thanks to Manushri. Manushri, sir, I must mention about her. And she is a girl that you, at the 11th hour, you ask her to do something, some changes in the creatives. You ask her anything till 12, till 2 in the night. You message her, this is the change we want to do. She will reply back us immediately. And thanks to you, Manushri, you have been a support system in conducting these webinars in the total. This was at 55th, and I know that 20 more are to come. We will be relieved after this seminar, but your job will continue further. And thanks to all the audience, thanks to Bindu ma'am. I've seen Bindu ma'am has also joined this program. And thanks to all other colleagues and the students for their participation. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bhai. Thank you.
I hope we'll continue the dialogue in our campus. Thank you, sir.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure.